Welcome. I'm so glad that you're with us today for Self-Care in Stressful Times. My name is Dana Bristol Smith with Leap to Success. We're a women's empowerment organization based in Carlsbad, California. Well, we've now have 1 month down. We just finished January, and here we are in February. This year, we are looking at self-care and having a theme each month for this series. January's theme was I have the power to create a new story. And February's theme is the affirmation, I am lovable, in recognition of Valentine's Day. So I want to share this beautiful field of tulips with you. And this is from our Leap to Success affirmation calendar. And just to let you know, we've got a few of these left. So if you'd like one of those, you can go ahead and send me a question in the chat and I will respond to you. So I am lovable is the theme. I'd like you to go ahead and put your hand on your heart for just a moment. And I'd like you to think of this 30 minutes that you're taking for yourself today as your self-compassion break, because that's what you're going to be giving yourself today. We'll be sharing some tips and some tools, and in a couple of minutes, a mindfulness practice. But you're giving this to yourself, your own gift of self-compassion. And I want to share an affirmation that one of our graduates named Holly wrote that is just so perfect for today's topic. Holly's affirmation says, I am surrounded by love. Everywhere I go, somebody loves me, even if it is just myself. So even if it's just myself, you can give yourself that love and that self-compassion, and know that the self-care that you experience, that you give to yourself, is one of the most important activities that you can do for your own health and well-being. I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to my co-host now, Kelly Grimes.
Hi, Dana, and our amazing participants for this webinar. Thank you again for committing this time to yourself. And we're going to explore embracing self-compassion, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to today.
Thank you, Kelly. We're going to go ahead now and take a poll because we want to check in with you and see what your current level of stress is. So I'll ask Alyssa to put up our poll, and please rate yourself, 1 being the lowest rating you can give, all the way up to 10 being the highest. What is the current level of stress that you're feeling? And I see them coming in, so thank you for participating. Looks like so far the majority of people are at a 4. That number is climbing, and it'll be up for just a few more seconds. And it looks like most of you are at about a level 4, though we've got 1 person up at a 10 and several down at 6, 7, and 8. Well, I'm so glad you're here because this is your opportunity to reduce the stress that you're carrying. I'd like to ask Alyssa, go ahead and put the link in our chat of our self-care library. You can be with us every Tuesday live or revisit any of the sessions in our self-care library, and you can find that at our Leap to Success website and also at our YouTube channel. So thank you, Alyssa. So go ahead and take a deep breath. And I'm going to guide you now through a gentle breathing practice. So go ahead and just pay attention to how you're seated in your chair. Take a nice deep breath in as if you're breathing from the bottom of your feet all the way up to the top of your head. And then go ahead and release your breath as if you're releasing from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And go ahead and do that a couple of times at your own pace. Good. Next, I'd like to invite you to put your hand on your belly, just one hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, see if your hand rises as you inflate your belly. And as you breathe out, see if your belly contracts. And go ahead and do that a couple of times on your own. Very good. Next, as you breathe in through your nose, again, paying attention to your belly expanding. And then as you breathe out through your mouth. And breathing in through your nose, feeling your belly expand. And out through your mouth. And I'd like you to, at your own pace, breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth 10 times. This is called soft belly breathing. And it is a practice that can instantly calm and instantly soothe you, decrease the level of cortisol that your body produces, and decrease your stress. So at your own pace, go ahead and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth 10 times. And if you need to go ahead and close your eyes to center yourself, go ahead and do that and just give yourself this gift. And continuing to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Very good. And let's take one more breath in together, in through our nose and out through your mouth. Wonderful. So that was soft belly breathing. And what you might have noticed is that as you continue to take those deep breaths, you might have been breathing a little slower and a little bit deeper each time. And just bringing your awareness to the air coming in through your nose and out through your mouth, and keeping your hand on your belly so you can feel your belly inflate as you breathed in and deflate as you breathed out. So thank you for joining me in that practice of soft belly breathing. And anytime this week that you need to take a self-compassion break, I encourage you to use soft belly breathing. And I'm going to go ahead now and turn you over to Kelly.
Thank you so much, Dana. I love the idea of a self-compassion break. Imagine if we started to schedule those in our day just to take 10 mindful breaths. We would really empower ourselves to lower our stress response and to really pay attention to what's going on in us so we can make nurturing choices. So I love that we are exploring the topic of embracing self-compassion as the first week of our theme for the month, that I am lovable. You see, I believe that self-compassion is foundational to cultivating a practice of self-nurturing and self-care, and it's at the heart of loving ourselves and believing that we are lovable. What I'm going to share with you today comes from my book, The Art of Self-Nurturing, a field guide to living with more peace, joy, and meaning. So I believe that self-compassion is the first step to developing a loving relationship with yourself. It influences how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself. It allows you to give yourself grace in a process of growth rather than judging yourself and expecting perfection. Self-compassion allows you to acknowledge what you've done well rather than continuing to look for evidence that you're not good enough or only focusing on what you haven't done. Self-compassion is a foundation of any sustainable change because we can't change an unnurturing habit from a place of blame and shame. According to Kristen Neff, who is a compassion researcher, an expert, and the director of the Center for Mindful Compassion here in San Diego, her definition of self-compassion is that it entails being warm and understanding toward ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or flatulating ourselves with self-criticism. It's so powerful. I love how expansive it is. It's when we suffer, when we feel, when fail, when we feel inadequate, how we tend to ourselves in those times. And we have a choice. Choosing to respond to ourselves with tenderness and kindness can both decrease our suffering immeasurably and also change our relationship with ourselves. You know, my experience is that many of us are very harsh with ourselves when we make a mistake. And sometimes that self-punishment is even worse than the original error, right? The original mistake that we made. So if you're wondering how compassionate you are to yourself, think about a time in this past week or lately that you made a mistake or had a strong emotion or felt inadequate. Now, reflect on how you spoke to yourself in that moment. Were your words loving and kind, or were they harsh and critical? If your words were harsh and critical, no, you are not alone. That has been, I think, for many of us, listening to those negative words and internalizing them. Maybe there was somebody else's negative words at one time, and we've internalized them to believe that there are words. We can often be our worst inner critics and reinforce this belief that we're not good enough. And the fact is that those judgmental and unkind words that we say to ourselves actually reinforce that we're not lovable, when the truth is we are all lovable. We know from amazing brain research that's been done, and one of the researchers, Rick Hansen, has really allowed us to see how powerful choice is in this, because negative messages are like Velcro to our brain. Whereas positive messages are more like Teflon, they slide off. So we've got this negativity sticking and this, positivity sliding off. Therefore, we have to create habits of giving ourselves positive messages, of responding to ourselves with self-compassion in order to change our neural pathways and this habit of responding so critically to ourselves. And what is amazing, friends, is we can learn to respond to ourselves with compassion and understand that it ends up being a practice and a daily choice. One of my favorite personal power statements that we share with our Leap to Confidence participants is, I leap, I am worthy. I have made mistakes, but I am not a mistake. That has been revolutionary for me. I have made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. This compassionate response is one that I use to help shift out of judgmental thoughts to more kind and loving ones. It actually helps me clarify my action from my identity, right? I made a mistake. Okay. How can I learn from that mistake? If I go into criticism, self-judgment, shame, it's a lot harder to learn from my mistakes. And I can get caught into actually making the same mistakes over and over again, which reinforces this sense of inadequacy or not being good enough. Dr. Neff wrote that when we give ourselves compassion, we're actually opening our hearts up in a way that can transform our lives. I believe that self-compassion can act like a healing salve for our broken hearts that come from all the pain and suffering that results from being human on this planet. And certainly during this pandemic, we have been experiencing those feelings for ourselves and the wider community that's been suffering as well. It allows us to actually use our self-awareness to heal our pain rather than reinforcing that we're not good enough. And it also supports us in knowing that we're not alone. We are connected to all of humanity, right? Sometimes people will say, I'm human, I'm not perfect. Self-compassion is living that. It's understanding that we're on this journey, and that actually responding with love to those times that we're suffering is a much more impactful way of being with ourselves. It's a much more powerful way of nurturing a relationship with us and for responding to ourselves like we would a dear friend. I have come personally to find that self-compassion's been the most transformative of the self-nurturing practices in my life because it's allowed me to learn to be tender towards all those aspects of myself. Sometimes we can be really comfortable in acknowledging our strengths, but we're challenged when it comes to looking at our weaknesses. Those might be the parts that we think are just about us, right? That there's something inherently wrong with us, that we have these versus we have this whole array of aspects within us. And when we can actually acknowledge that, not only do we build compassion for ourselves, but we expand that to compassion and empathy for others, right? Part of my journey with self-compassion was trying to have more realistic expectations of myself, which has allowed me to have more realistic expectations of others. I found over time I had been holding myself to such a high standard, it was hard to ever meet it. And so therefore I was always, criticizing myself that somehow I hadn't done something. And I'd spent a lot of time going over those things that I didn't feel like I did right or that I had made a mistake. What self-compassion allows us to do is actually use that self-awareness to move to self-acceptance, to move to self-forgiveness, and actually to learn and grow from our experience. Friends, we're on this amazing journey right now. So much has been turned upside down. The way that we thought we knew things to be is no longer. And so approaching ourselves from a place of compassion as we learn, right, to navigate this very difficult time, it might just be the most nurturing and kind thing that we could do. Treating ourselves with self-compassion then becomes an act of self-nurturing, an act of self-care. And it reveals infinite possibilities in our lives for healing, forgiveness, and growth. So I keep thinking, hey, how can I treat myself more like I would a dear friend, right? Because that sometimes is the step to the next way of being. I know how to treat a dear friend. If a dear friend came to me and said that she'd made a mistake, I would listen with compassion and say, I bet that was really difficult, right? I would have some expression of empathy and compassion for the feelings that were there. And then maybe look at things from a different perspective than my friend was. I might also then, when I'm able to do that for myself, have the ability to then set boundaries so that others treat me with that same love and respect, right? So it's a beautiful, supportive thing, both for healthy relationships when we treat ourselves like we would a dear friend. John Kabat-Zinn, one of my mindfulness teachers and the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction, he says that befriending your mind, body, and heart enables you to enact a love affair with the possible. I love that quote. And he also says, and in doing so, there is great potential for healing in this process. I think that's what draws me both to mindfulness and actively cultivating a friendship with myself. Because what is possible seems wide open when we engage with ourselves from a place of compassion and loving kindness. Choosing to respond to ourselves with compassion then becomes a transformational act of acceptance and love. And it reinforces that you're lovable, right? You can say that and believe that when you're treating yourself as if you're lovable. So, I want to give you some tools, right? How can you embrace self compassion today? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to notice how we speak to ourselves when we make a mistake, feel a strong emotion, or feel inadequate. So, really practicing a spirit of curiosity and non judgment and noticing, being a curious observer of ourselves and just notice, like, oh, wow, there was a very, harsh critical voice that came up right away when I made that mistake. Or when I had a strong emotion that I said to myself, oh, you don't have the right to feel that way. Or whatever it is that stops us from having that warmth and tender approach to ourselves when we feel those ways. Then the second thing is to choose to respond in a loving and kind way, like you would a dear friend. Sometimes when I've spoken to a friend and maybe she said, um, you know, she's not having a good day and telling me the things that are wrong with her, I might say, hey, please don't treat my best friend that way. And so I've started to internalize that towards myself if I notice that I'm starting to think in a critical way. Hey, wait, don't treat my best friend that way. And then choose a compassionate statement and write it down. Maybe you were inspired by the statement, I have made mistakes, but I am not a mistake. You could have that somewhere as a reminder for you. Maybe you are drawn to some kind of soothing, compassionate statement like, I am doing the best I can. Or one I love is, I am learning and growing every day, right? That really helps me not be so caught up in trying to be perfect or anything else. I can put that aside because I am in a process of learning and growing. Another thing that you could say is, I choose to treat myself with compassion. That statement really clearly reinforces that it's a choice and that each moment you notice, you can respond in a different way. If you've noticed harsh and critical talk, bring in love and compassion. You could also use that beautiful theme we have this month. I am lovable. I am lovable. And when I know that I'm lovable, I'm going to treat myself with that same kind of love and compassion. So, when you're able to accept yourself, challenges and all, we can live more honestly and authentically. And I think that an act of compassion allows us to really hold all the complexity of what we're going through right now, right? All of our feelings, affirm our experience, recognize that we are doing the best that we can. And that acknowledgement alone can be deeply self nurturing. So, imagine treating yourself like you would your best friend. Instead of spending time judging and criticizing, being at war with yourself, that you choose self compassion, you choose to embrace it. So, my question to you is, how might embracing self compassion impact the way that you feel about yourself, treat yourself, and value yourself? For any of those of you on the webinar today, I would love to share your comments with that. How you think embracing self compassion could impact how you feel about yourself, or how you treat yourself, or how you value yourself. If you would, I would be grateful to hear those and share those. Because I know for me, there's a tenderness that I'm able to afford myself. There's a gentleness that I am able to afford myself, and a grace, and it positively fuels my sense of being love. I've shared with you all in the past, my affirmation is, I am love, I choose love, I radiate love. And that's part of self-compassion. It's a choice of love. Someone shared that they would be easier on themselves. Yes, yes. And in a world, friends, with so much chaos and uncertainty and challenges, imagine that we could be more gentle with ourselves in this journey. Another person shared, it has changed my entire being, my confidence, my acceptance, and my outlook on life. Yes, yes. Another person said, I think it will help me move forward a little faster. I tend to get stuck on the negative. Yeah, and that's you know what? Our brains are set up like that. That's why the choice piece of it and being able to reinforce it is so powerful. Another person said, I'd be able to stay positive even in tough times. And absolutely, you know, when we go to blame and shame, we can't draw upon our resilience. We can't draw upon all of those qualities within us that allow us to persevere even in difficult times. So I thank you so much for sharing those. And I want to close my piece by sharing a beautiful reminder from Christopher Germer. He's another self-nurturing researcher and expert. A moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. I have absolutely experienced that in my own life, and I look forward to hearing more and more how your embracing self-compassion really allows you to care for yourself in these very stressful times. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand things over to Dana.
Thank you, Kelly. That was great. I love that quote by Christopher Germer. A moment of self-compassion can change your entire day. A string of such moments can change the course of your life. That's so beautiful and so powerful. I'd like to go ahead and check in with you now to do our final poll on the level of stress that you are feeling right now. And as soon as we complete that, I have something really exciting to share with you. So go ahead and rate yourself once again on that scale of 1 to 10. And I see you doing that, so thank you for sharing with us. Wow, we're definitely seeing lower. Oh my goodness, we've got somebody at a 1. Yay, that's wonderful. 2, 3, and it looks like the highest number that we have now is 5. Well, I hope that that is the person who had a level 10 before, because that means you've decreased by at least 50%. So that's wonderful. It looks like most people had around a 3 response. So I'm really glad that you've given yourself this time to let your stress come down, to take some deep breaths, to think about these ideas that Kelly shared about self-compassion, and that so you can be more kind to yourself, you can be more gentle to yourself, and you can recognize how truly wonderful you are. I have a blue ribbon, and some of you might be familiar with this blue ribbon and the creator of it. The blue ribbon says, "Who I am makes a difference." And the creator of this blue ribbon is a very good friend of mine named Halise Sparky Bridges, who has taken this message of who I am makes a difference around the world and shared it with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And her vision is that 1 billion people on our planet know this about themselves and are honored by this blue ribbon. Halise Sparky Bridges is going to be my special guest next week. As we're exploring this theme of I am lovable, Sparky is about the most lovable and adorable people who I know. And I can't wait for her to be with us, because she's going to help you discover more ways that you can recognize your own worth, that you can be kinder and more loving to yourself. Because what happens from that, when you're able to see it about yourself, you can then see it in others, and you can help to share the love and the compassion with everybody that you come in contact with. So I'm excited that Sparky is going to be my special guest next week, and I invite you to share this webinar with a friend. If there's somebody special in your life, maybe a colleague, maybe a family member who would benefit by having a larger dose of self-love and kindness, please invite them to join us next week. On Friday, you will go ahead and receive the email reminder to sign up. So share that email with friends and colleagues and share the love. So I'm so glad that you're with us for self-care in stressful times. And see you next week. Bye-bye.